Howdy, y'all. Sorry, camera's blocked for just a moment. Stream will All right, it is 11. We're here. We're going. Oh, my headband fell off. Hi. I'm a little blown out. Let me. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna go close my blinds just a tad. Okay. How's that? Make me less pasty. Hi, y'all. We're getting going here. Sunday chill stream, so I have some breakfast going. Freezer breakfast burritos. So you know things are all right. They're so hot on the inside. I got my coffee. And I think we can say the stream is started. Get rid of that. So, I'm Ryan. Hi, I'm the calculus tutor. I'm here multiple days a week right now, Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But that's been in flux. I'll figure out, the days that seem to work best. But right now, 3 days a week, to answer your math questions for free. I just hang out here, wait for questions to come in. I work through them, do my best to address misunderstandings and really help you learn something from the problems that get submitted. Uh, yeah, because you want to get your math homework done, but it's going to help you out a lot if you can actually learn something from it, right? It's going to make the test easier. Okay, so if you have a math question you'd like me to answer, as you can see here, you can submit your math questions at thecalculustutor.com. So if you go to thecalculustutor.com, wrong button. You're going to get a black screen for just a second. You won't. When you go, you're going to get a black screen on the stream because anytime I switch screen share sources, it just goes black until I tap my stream feed. It's very weird. Anyway, if you go to thecalculustutor.com, this is what you'll see. This is my site. You can see at the top, it says that I'm live now answering math questions. So that banner will always tell you if I'm currently live, when the next stream is going to be, or if, say, the current stream is delayed or something. If I'm delayed sitting down to get to the stream. But yeah, so if you have a question you'd like me to answer, you can scroll down just a little bit and find this pink streaming section here. And there's a submit a question button. Go ahead and tap that. And that'll just take you to the streaming page of my website. And it'll scroll down to the submit math questions section for you right there. Excellent, excellent. You can see there's a question submission form button right here. And right below it, or email your question to Ryan at thecalculustutor.com. Pretty straightforward email address. And because email is just like a blank canvas, right? Here's some guidelines about what to include in your email. I am so sorry. I have a student after this. And they are asking about pushing back our session just a little bit. So give me 1 second. I do apologize. Yeah, they just need to push back the session a little bit. I just wanted to get that in there. Um, okay. Sorry. Here's some guidelines for what to include in your email. What I would recommend though is this question submission form. Go ahead and tap that. And when you tap that, uh, it should take you to right to this form. Before it takes you to the form, it may ask you to sign into a Google account. You have to be signed into a Google account to use this form because you can submit files, and that's just a Google requirement. Um, but I think I kind of get it. You know, that makes it so just like it makes it at least a little bit harder for just random people on the internet to just send me random files. Um, but anyway, and I'll show you what files you can submit here in just a second. So this is the form. Um, so first you just have to check and say, yes, this is my email address. Like this is kind of nice so you can double check what Google account you're signed in with. But you have to check that and say, yes, this is my email address, and you can attach it to this form. Um, then tell me who you are. This doesn't have to be your real name, just however you'd like me to refer to you while I'm answering your question. This question was submitted by such and such. Hey, such and such. In this section, be really careful that you don't forget the negative or something like that. This would also be a fine place to include your pronouns if you care. Um, then let me know where this question came from. My assumption with this whole service that I'm offering here is that a lot of these questions are going to be homework questions or test prep questions, things like that. But I'm happy, super happy actually, to answer any math question you have, even if it's not from a math class, if it's just from your life or something that occurred to you, whatever. But anyway, so tell me where the question came from. My thinking here is tell me the teacher and the class that the math problem is from. So like Mick Smith's geostats, Mr. Anderson's calculus, whatever, right? Just teacher and class, or if it's not from a class, just tell me how you came upon this problem. You don't have to tell me a whole story, just like a partial sentence is totally fine. All right. And then here's the stuff that starts to actually like matter for you. Um, what is your question? Now, you don't need to retype the whole math problem here because, as you can see a little bit further down, you can attach images. So you can take a picture of the math problem and attach it to this form. So and then that way you don't have to retype all the math stuff because that would be such a pain that it wouldn't even, I think for a lot of students, it wouldn't even be worth submitting the questions. So what is this section for if it's not to tell me what the math problem is? This is for you to tell me what your question about the math problem is, right? Now, all chances are I will work through the entire math problem, but this is for you to tell me where in that math problem would it be most helpful to you for me to focus, right? And so, one thing obviously you're going to want to tell me what the problem is here, right? So you might tell me number 11, right? Because if the picture you send me is your entire textbook page or your entire worksheet like page or whatever, direct me to the particular problem. But then you might give me a little bit more. What is it about that problem that you think is giving you trouble, right? So you might say, I'm not sure how to graph this. Um, Perfect. So I'll work through the problem, and then when we get to and I'll explain all the pieces. I'm not going to blaze through all of the stuff except for the one part. We'll take our time and we'll make sure all the parts are understood. But then once I get to the graphing, then I know that's really what you're here for, right? That's the place where I can, you know, address common, really sort of dig into sort of common misunderstandings, things like that. If you can be even more specific than this, that would be great. Uh, you might, equations. Oops. I don't know how to graph, when there are fractions. Right? See that just a couple extra words and it gets more specific. Now this tells me it's not just the graphing that's throwing you off, it's the graphing when there are fractions involved and how does that affect things? And for sure that would definitely affect things. Um I understand though, sometimes you're not really sure what your question is because you're not even sure how to start the problem, or you're just not even sure what you're supposed to do with the problem. And you can totally tell me that too. You say number 11, uh, these problems aren't like the, oops, the ones we did in class, right? That's actually still helpful to me. That tells me that you're having trouble getting started, and that's actually a really common place to get stuck. That lets me know to spend some time there talking about strategies for getting started, how we know what to do, right? That's a question students often have, but can be hard to articulate sometimes. Is like, how do you know that's what you were supposed to do? Uh, and I think it's a really good question. In fact, I'm really glad when students ask that question. But yeah, things like that, right? This is just for you to direct me to the particular problem. And if you can articulate what about that problem is giving you the most trouble or is the most worrisome, include that. So yeah, so that's what that section's for. Uh, for you to actually send me the math problems you would like me to work through, that's what these images are for. So you snap a picture. Your goal with the pictures is to be clear and complete. Clear just means I can read the text, make sure it's not too small, too blurry, make sure the picture's not too dark, too blown out. Just all those regular things, right? Um, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Oh my gosh, does it not have to be perfect? Just not so far gone that I can't decipher it. But I can totally sort of read a text that's a little bit blurry or a little bit dark or a little bit blown out. And if there's like one number or something that I can't seem to make out, if you're in the live chat, you can just tell me. If you're not in the live chat and I have to make an assumption, I will make that very clear in my notes that like I can't read this. I can't tell if this is a 3 or an 8, so I'm going to assume it's an 8. And then if you when you go back and look at the my notes and you're like, "Oh, but it wasn't an 8, it was actually a 3." And now you're like, "Well, so you didn't actually do the problem." That's fine. I did do the problem. I just did the problem with an 8. And now you have an opportunity to do the same problem, your own work, when it was a 3. But all the same stuff should still mostly apply. So it almost gives you a built-in practice, which is kind of nice. Yeah. And then complete means one, make sure you don't accidentally crop off part of the problem. That happens sometimes. Uh, but the other part of complete is make sure your picture includes the instructions for the problem. So, you're familiar with this. Oftentimes in a textbook or on a worksheet, there's a block of instructions for several that applies to several problems. So make sure your picture includes that block of instructions. So either just take a picture that includes the whole problem in the instructions or include a separate picture of the instructions. You can include up to 5 files here, including PDFs. So like if this is a problem from like your teacher gave you a PDF packet like via Canvas or something, you can just download the whole packet and send the PDF to me. It's even more important in that case for you to tell me where to go. So you might tell me uh, page 3, number 14, something like that. Uh, just to really make sure I'm answering the question you want me to answer, or go working on the problem you want me to work on. Same thing with like Canvas or WebWork or MyOpenMath or Fuel or just all these other electronic or online math homework things. Just take a screenshot of the problem and attach the screenshot. That's totally fine. Um, the other part of completeness here is make sure your picture includes any diagrams or charts or tables, anything like that that's part of the problem, including like say part of the problem is to graph something and they include a blank coordinate axis like on a worksheet. If your picture includes that blank coordinate axis, I will use the same coordinate axis you're supposed to be using, and that way my notes will be even more reflective of what you're supposed to be doing on that problem, just to get rid of any sort of confusion or anything. If I make a coordinate axis that looks a certain way but you're like, yeah, but the one they gave us, sort of, I don't know how to translate your graph to this. we wouldn't even have to worry about it. I will just use the one provided to you. So yeah, that's the process here. Oh, this one other thing, can I share your work on stream? The other thing you can include that would be really, really helpful to me is if you include in a picture of any work you've already done on that problem, a similar problem. So maybe you're asking me about number 17, but you did number 16, or similar problems you did in class or notes you took in class about whatever topic that these problems are based on. Um, Anything you can send me, just one picture. It doesn't have to be a ton. Just one picture of your own work that is somehow relevant to that problem can sometimes help me get a little bit of insight into how I can be of the most help to you. It can help me see gaps or misunderstandings that you don't even realize are present, for you as you're working through it, and that can oftentimes be a source of struggle. So even just one picture of your own work relevant to that problem can help me give you even better help. Um, that said, I know most people don't want their math work broadcast on the internet. Keep in mind, nobody watches these, so like even if I did show it on stream, nobody would see it. But as we move into the future with the idea that people will start watching these, I'm starting off with the promise your work will never appear on the stream. It's just for me to look at and consider while I'm working on the problem and while I'm, giving you advice or trying to address your question completely. That said, that's my promise to you. But as I'm starting to also advertise to, say, college and university students, once you get to a certain level of math, a thing that can be helpful if you're struggling is for somebody to go through your work line by line, because at a certain point you get to problems that are so involved that there are several pieces to the solution. There are several steps to those pieces. And so kind of like grading an essay, or not grading an essay, but like proofreading an essay, or something like that. The thing that could be most useful to some of those students is that they send in their problem and all of their work, and I go through it sort of line by line, kind of similar to like an art critique or something, but it's like giving them advice about whether that process would work all the time, or just things like that, right? Um, the people who are in those sorts of classes know what I'm talking about. Um, and so I needed a way for those people to send those types of questions into me, and so that's what the checkbox is for. For most, pretty much all high school students, even most undergrad students, um, you probably don't even have to worry about it. Leave that box unchecked. Your work, please send me an image of your work related to the problem, but I do promise you it will not show up on stream. If you're sending me a picture of a worksheet, like a problem on a worksheet, and you've done some of the problems around it or whatever, and it's hard to send a picture of the problem without including your work in it, that's totally fine. I'll absolutely respect that, right? And I will. That means I may not use your image. I might just rewrite the whole problem in the notes instead of using your image as the base for our problem. But so yeah, so that's my promise to you. So this is how you send your files, or not your files, send your problems in. They should arrive really, really quickly. The form I should um, if I it should only take a couple of seconds for the form to update on my end. That said, I'm not constantly staring at it. So if you do submit a question and it's been a couple minutes and it seems like I'm not acknowledging it, uh, if you hop into chat and just ping me. But I pay pretty close attention to it. Um, yeah, so that's how you submit your questions. That's how you participate in that way. What's really nice about this process um, is that you don't have to participate synchronously. You don't have to, you can submit your question even when I'm not streaming. I don't have to be live for you to submit your question. That form is just always available. Um, and so, like on my website, so right, if you on the homepage on thecalculustutor.com, this whole box disappears when I'm not streaming. This is like my live stream box, and it only appears when I'm live. So that button goes away. Um, But what you can do, if you scroll all the way down, there's a submit a question button here that just takes you directly to the form. If the form doesn't work for you, oh, like if you go to sign in with your school Google account, it tells you you can't access the form. You can just remember, you can just email me, right? So you could go to it. So if you click this banner at the top, that that banner, no matter what's on it, the banner will always take you to the streaming page. And here there's a header with a a link to the form. Um, and again, but this button here never disappears. Even when this pink streaming box disappears, this button doesn't. But yeah, so that's how you submit your questions, and you can submit them anytime. And then when I'm live, that's what I do during these is I go find all the questions and I just start going through them, answering them in the order they came in. You don't have to be here live to see me answering it, right? I am on a schedule and I try to make my schedule something that seems like it would work for a lot of people, but like I don't know your schedule, right? Uh, and that's just my assumption. But here's what's really nice. I'll answer your question live. I'll put it in the notes, and we'll talk about the notes in just a minute. Um, I'll answer your question live, but it's being recorded, right? This live stream it's being broadcast live, but it's being recorded as a VOD, video on demand. And you can access that VOD anytime. An additional great thing here. Be ends up working out really nicely that people have to be signed into a Google account, and their email address gets sent to me when they submit the form. Um, I probably wouldn't necessarily have set it up like that if I had a choice, but since I didn't have a choice, I'm actually kind of glad that this worked out this way. Um, so if you email me your question, obviously I'll have your email address. But even if you submit the form, I'll still have your email address. And so here's what happens after the stream where I answer your question. I'll go through and I will clip out my response to your question into its own little separate video. Or actually, I'm not going to do that yet. I will eventually do that. But I can link to the particular place in the live stream in the VOD in the recording of this live stream. The particular moment, the timestamp where I started answering your question, I can link to that. I can also link to a particular place in the notes, and I'll show you the notes in a moment. Um, so after I answer your question, I will email you and say, hey, I answered your question on stream today. For your convenience, here's a link to the timestamp in the VOD, so you can just jump straight to me answering your question. And here's a link to the place in the notes where my notes about your question are, and you can access those notes. And and then I'll send that email to you, and you can just check your email when it's convenient, and you can watch and get my notes when it's convenient to you. And never did we have to coordinate schedules. Never did you have to watch a thing that was happening at a particular time because there's no other time to watch it. Um I think the live nature of this can add some nice stuff because, like, I could just do this not live, record myself, post the video, post a link to it, right? But I think the live nature of it can be really nice for drop in math help. That's what I'm trying to ultimately recreate. I used to do drop in math help when I worked at one of the high schools around here. Um, and it just seems so helpful. And I'm just trying to figure out a way to do that again more, you know. So so that's what this is. That's what this whole thing is an attempt to do. I want to remember to eat my breakfast. Hmm. Yeah, let's talk about the notes. Mm. Talk about dropping a little piece of egg out of my burrito. Okay. So we're on the streaming page. Is it at the bottom? No. So from the home page, you can get to the streaming page at both the top and the bottom of the page. So this banner always links to the streaming page, and there's always a link at the bottom to the streaming page. Um, and then when I am live, there's a button right here that jumps you to the notes. Um, but as I said, that's only there when I'm streaming. But if you go to the stream page, you click the banner, go to the stream page. Under the math live streams header, there's a math notes. In this thing, there's a math notes in this streaming box. But again, the streaming boxes goes away when I'm not streaming. Yeah, so I think when I'm not streaming, the only place right now to access the notes is via this drop down, math notes right there. So those math notes, let me go back to it. Oh, tap the screen so the screen's not black for you. Hey, there we go. Okay. So when I'm working on problems, this is where I work on them. Obviously, don't have any math right here for today, but if we zoom out and go to a previous day where there were some notes, like here, this Tuesday. So what happened? So I had a question, or I had a topic. In order to answer a question, I wanted to cover some stuff. So here's some notes here about Euler's number. And then I had this problem about L'Hopital's rule. And I worked through the problem, and you can see my work here, but notice what happens as I get into the problem. All of a sudden, the stuff up above goes off screen, and if you're just watching the stream, you can't see it. You can pop into chat and say, "Hey, can you scroll back up?" You could just go back in the stream, but then if you do that, you're missing what I'm currently saying. And so you'd have to scrub back through and scrub back and forth. That's a pain. That's obviously not the best way for you to observe and access these notes. What would be better is if you could just look at them yourself, right? And that's what those buttons do. Those buttons that jump to the notes, they take you to this is a product or a service, a web app called Miro. And it's basically an infinite digital whiteboard. It has so many tools and integrations and stuff like that. I use 5% maybe of the features of this. But so when you go to it, you can yourself scroll to wherever you want in the entire file. So you can just yourself scroll back up, and that way you can still listen to me, or you could just zoom out so you can see more of what's going on. You can see me as I'm working. If I'm currently live and you're trying to follow along live, you can click on my face. Well, obviously here it doesn't work, and it will jump you right to where I'm at. Let me click I'm in this Miro board twice. I'm in it on the computer I'm streaming on, and the other computer I have going to sort of support my stream. But if you click on my face, it will jump you right to where I am. I clicked on my utility login, and it just jumped me to sort of the random place I was there. But yeah, so it's really important that you're able to access the notes, and you can right now. So you can see the date on here, October 20th through December. I'm just going through the end of the year. I will start a new file at the beginning of the year. The old files, once they have real content in them, like that question that I had notes on there, that's just something I pulled to work on during a stream because there were no user submitted questions. Once there's real information in these that people might want to actually look up, there will be an archive on the website where you can access previous notes and previous streams. Yeah. So That's thecalculustutor.com is where you go to submit questions. Oh, I didn't mention it. If if you have trouble accessing the form, like it tells you because you tried to use like your school Google account and it tells you, oh, you can't access this form because it wasn't, it's not part of the school Google network. You can just email your question to Ryan at thecalculustutor.com. On the website, there are those guidelines. They're the exact same things that the form asks for, right? It asks for your your name, just your preferred name, however you want me to refer to you. Where the problem is from. It asks you for your specific question, and there's a reminder on there to make sure you attach images, the images of your problem, along with the guidance for those images to be clear and complete. So all the same stuff. And honestly, if emailing is easier, feel free to email. That's why there's two options. I would ultimately like stuff to filter more and more stuff through the form because it's easier to organize. Email is, as you know, is clunky and a mess. Um, but don't worry about what I want. Worry about asking your question. I would prefer you submit your question in a way that is super inconvenient for me, so long as it's convenient for you. I want I want to tear down as many barriers as possible to people submitting their questions, getting their questions answered. So nothing I've put here is meant to be a barrier. It's all I have ideas about what would be helpful for me to receive from the people asking questions, and I'm trying to be conscientious of not putting too much stuff in your way. Because if it's too big of a pain in the butt to ask a question, people won't ask them. People won't use the service. So it's just easier to just not. If you get stuck on one math problem, the easiest option is just to not do it. And you know, and for a lot of students, that probably works out fine. Um, okay. Um, so you know how to ask questions by going to the website. Now you know how to also access the notes anytime you want. So you can go back and uh, look at the notes for the question I answer, at your own pace and look at the particular parts you want. You can't write in there when you all access it. It's read only. Um, I wish there was like some small in between thing where I could like have people like ping particular parts of the Miro board to like draw my attention to it to be like, hey, did you make an error here? Or where did this five come from? Things like that, right? So today, well, first of all, let me uh, check for questions. I can tell by the traffic that there uh, almost certainly have not been any question submissions because nobody has seen this. But maybe somebody was like, "Oh, I meant to submit a question to Ryan," and they wanted to do that before they actually like turned on the live stream. Okay, so no questions. So what's going on today? Um, so today, I, I mean, when there's no questions, I try to just make the best use of this time I can. Um, the last few weeks, I've been dealing with some mental health stuff and some related to like medications as well. And I'm finally feeling better. I finally sort of feel like I have my mind back. I was telling my therapist, I feel like I sort of understand for the first time this idea of like losing your mind. Um, I've had mental health struggles basically my whole life, but this going off these medications was the first time I really just felt like I just didn't even have access to my mind. Um, I've struggled a lot with not feeling like I have control over my mind, not feeling like like feeling like there are aspects of my mind that are playing against me. But this is the first time I feel like I just couldn't access it. Anyway, that's all past. I'm feeling considerably better, and I feel like I have my mind back. I feel like I can focus and think about things. Um, so I'm I'm a bit excited to get back in here and start using this time again. Because it ends up being what, 5 hours a week total that I'm here. And honestly, I try to avoid sitting at my desk as much as possible. So this is some of the longest spans of time I'm just sitting at my desk, honestly. Um, so I may as well use the time. So today, what I want to use that time for, I have a new student I mentioned, had just texted me actually and wanted to adjust our meeting slightly today. Excuse me, eating. So I need to email. I need to send off my first. The way when I have one-on-one students, when I first start working with them, I send them an initial email with all of the links and some introductory stuff. But then before every meeting, about 15 minutes before we're scheduled to meet, I'll have an email scheduled to go out that will include those links again so that they're always right at the top of their inbox um, when we're going to meet. So all they have to do is go to their inbox. My email should be near the top, or my newest email should always be near the top. And what's really nice is once I've sent one of those emails, I mostly just copy paste it for all subsequent emails. Um, but I don't have an email one. I don't have one of those emails for this student yet, so I need to make one. Um, Pretty easy. I will just go to one of my other students' emails and more or less copy that. Oh, oops. Boom. There we go. Cool. There we go. Schedule. And yeah, so I just, as I'm getting ready for tutoring for the day or for the, I used to actually do this. I used to, when I had more students and I would, so it was kind of more critical to be more organized and just do stuff in batches. I would oftentimes sit down on Sunday or sometimes Monday, um, and get all of these emails scheduled for the whole week. I knew what my tutoring schedule was for the week, and so I would just really quickly just go through, make all of these, like, here are the links to or here are our tutoring links. Honestly, I could probably automate this even more. Um, and like tie it in my calendar or something. And if there's a tutoring, if there's tutoring scheduled, just have it automatically send that email 15 minutes before. Um, I've streamlined a lot of it to the point where, and especially with the number of students I have now, it's not that burdensome. But if I get back to the point where I have, a good dozen and a half students at any given point, um, it might be worthwhile. But yeah, so I just um, schedule this to be sent about 15 minutes before our scheduled meeting time. And then, yeah, it's right at the top of the student's inbox. Um, and that just seems convenient to me. Um, Even though for each student, the links don't usually change, it's the same links pretty much the entire time we're working together. Periodically, I need to I change and update the what's it called, the video chat link, but the link to the so each student. So when I'm working with students one-on-one, each student has their own Miro board that they can access, and then when I'm working one-on-one with students, they do have right access to their own Miro board. They can paste problems in there. They can do work in there if they want to. For a lot of students, they're on either a trackpad or they have a mouse, so it's a pain to actually do work in there. But some students have like a tablet with a stylus or something, and some students, yeah, get right in there and they do their work on the problems in there so that I can see and give advice and stuff. It works out real nicely. Okay. So, email links to new students. Boom. That's done. Prep for this week's streams. So that means a couple things. That means in the Miro board. So you can sort of here, I'll zoom out so you can sort of see what I'm doing here. And yeah, and I mean, if you access these notes, it's gonna sort of maybe pop any bubble of illusion you might have. Like you can see, I have all sorts of about like how structured and nice stuff might look. It looks nice because I present it nicely, but like I have all sorts of like little elements and stuff spread all over the page. Um, yeah, just things that I want to be able to have easy access to, like copy or paste or something. So here's what I'm going to do for today. I want to get the sections ready for the next 3 streams for Tuesday, Wednesday of this coming week, and then next Sunday's stream. So here's what I'm going to do. And in fact, actually, I wonder, can't select more than one thing that's been locked. But if I boop, boop, and boop, boop, there we go. Now I can do that. Hot, check this out. I have excellent. Look how easy that is. I am deeply appreciative. Okay. And so now what I'll do is I'll go in to each date and change it to what it's supposed to be. That was the 9th, so a week later should be the 16th. Yeah, Tuesday's the 16th. Excellent. And now I'll select those. I will lock them. Actually, lock them. Okay. And now we'll go over here to Wednesday. It's really small for you all, I guess. Come in here. 17, and then we'll also lock that one. Come over here. Sunday. The next Sunday is the 21st. Change that to the 21st. Okay. Boom. Easy. Okay. There's that. And then what I want to do. So I like to have this stream will begin soon message already ready, so that way I can pull up the Miro board and share it, and it just already has that message there. Because I'm trying to get into this process of already having the stream already going when the scheduled start time is. Um, I'm trying to be better about not starting the stream at say 11, but rather getting the stream going at 11. You know what I mean? So all of the like the stream is started, all of this stuff is already taken care of, and then once 11 hits, I can go, "Hi, y'all. This is the homework help stream. I'm Ryan, the calculus tutor." Like do all do my intro and stuff right away. Just have more time, right? Um, that's not always going to happen. I'm not, always going to be able to get sat down, um, right when I want to. But um, if I have as much as possible set up ahead of time, then even if I can't get sat down until like 11, right as the stream is starting or something, um, there's it's still quicker to get the stream going ultimately and get it off the ground. So there we go. That's pretty good. This is the Miro board being taken care of. Um, it's really nice to have all of this taken care of ahead of time. The other thing I need to do is get the streams actually prepared. If you've never streamed before, I can schedule my streams ahead of time and get all of the stuff, the description, the title, all the various settings, and that way I can just click to go live, and all that stuff's already ready for me. So I set up my entire week's, I schedule my entire week's streams on Sundays as well, usually. As these things get busier, this is probably stuff I'll end up doing after stream, but for now, I have plenty of time during stream. So it's sort of a meta thing. What am I doing on stream? Well, I'm getting ready to stream on stream. Yeah. So we're still prepping this week's streams. I think what I will do is I will put that there. Okay. So we'll schedule actually. Okay. I needed, you know what I want to do here? String description. Okay, now I have a place to keep. You can't like create a template. It'd be really nice if like I could set like a template for my titles, a template for my description, like things that are always going to be in there, and then a little placeholders for the stuff I have to adjust. Um, because I always, so my titles are always what day of the week it is, what the date is in sort of my star date format. Um, Heck, if we have time, maybe that's the thing I'll talk about today is why I do my dates the way I do. Um, all right, so I'm setting up Tuesday. Tuesday is our late stream. Like, yeah, like even like thumbnails. I mean, I guess every video, most people are probably gonna want a different thumbnail. The more I have to customize per stream, the bigger pain it becomes. I mean, and the more reason there is to do all this prep work ahead of time, but even still. Okay, there's that. There's like this weird, yeah, there's a leaderboard that's by default on streams. Leaderboard shows the top 50 viewers and who have been most engaged in the community during your live stream. I'm like, I don't want that. It's not a competition. Um, I used to turn on slow mode too, but nobody's here, so there's no reason to turn on slow mode. So I'll just keep in mind that it exists, and if at some point I need it, I will remember that I can. All right. So our Tuesday stream will be on the 16th. So so I have a Sunday chill stream, which is 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, PST. I'm on the West Coast. Tuesday though is a late stream. Starts at 9. We go from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. PST again. And my hope is that that's maybe a good time for students who have jobs, have after school extracurriculars, have just responsibilities, have siblings or just other home or family responsibilities that they have to take care of in the afternoon and early evening hours. And I've worked with students. I've had one-on-one students who don't have a chance to get to their homework until like 8, 9, 10 p.m. at night. Like that's just the first opportunity they would have in the day to even get to it. And so I thought it might be a good idea to have a stream going possibly during when those people are working on stuff. So yeah, so Tuesday is our late stream. I now have that up and going. Let's do Wednesday is just our regular after school stream here in the district I'm in Eugene, Oregon. School lets out at 2 p.m. on Wednesdays. It's the district wide early release day. Well, early release day for middle and high school, I believe. I think elementary has a different thing. I think they have a late start day or something. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I don't interact with elementary that often. Um, Wednesday, though, the middle and high school students um, get out at 2 p.m. So 3:30 p.m., which is actually normally when school gets out every other day, seems like a decent time. There's time for students to like get themselves to a place where they can, sit down and work on some math or something. Um, but again, remember, it's not crucial that you interact with this synchronously. You get basically all the same stuff out of it interacting asynchronously. All right, so this will be Wednesday. And that'll be the 17th. It could be nice to have different thumbnails for each stream day, because since they're all a little bit different, right? We have the chill stream, the late stream, and the after school stream. Um, so it could be nice to have different thumbnail images for each of those. Right now, all my thumbnails are exactly the same. The only difference on the videos at first glance is the title. All right, so this is 3:30 p.m. And then we'll also do next Sunday. Ooh, next Sunday though. So this, for my school district, this is the last week of school before winter break. Um, hmm, hmm, hmm. I will do a Sunday stream. I probably won't do a Tuesday, Wednesday stream. Tuesday's the 23rd, Wednesday's the 24th, Christmas Eve. And while like Christmas isn't a thing to me, I know it is to basically everybody else. Yeah, I'll do a Sunday stream. That's far enough out ahead of the actual holiday days that I can see maybe that being useful to some people. That the first weekend of winter break could be a really good opportunity to get out ahead of any math homework or math work students have to do over the break. Get it out of the way, especially so they don't have to worry about it during that sort of Christmas week. And then we can sort of dive back in the weekend after, and then the weekend after New Year's as well. So 3 weekends for winter break. Okay. Only math help stream for the holiday week. Excellent. Okay. Mm, I'm a little, uh, um, not annoyed that my student pushed back. Um, uh, it's just nice when my schedule is nice and compact. Now I'm going to have, instead of having a half hour between the end of the stream and my my student, it's gonna be an hour and a half, which is just a little awkward, but I'm sure I'll find something to do. Mm, pretty tasty. Generally, I just love burritos. Burritos, tortillas, things wrapped in tortillas rather. Um, it's just like such a it's a superior sandwich, is what it is, right? And the whole idea of a sandwich is the bread is there to sort of, at least this is like the Earl of Sandwich origins of sandwiches, right? Is the idea that the bread's there to keep your fingers from getting, you know, oils from the meats and cheeses and things and sauces on your fingers, supposedly because the Earl of Sandwich liked to play cards, and especially back in the day, cards were just paper. They didn't have like, you know, like protective coatings type of things that like modern playing cards have. And so yeah, if your fingers were oily, it would stain the cards. Um, and stained cards are marked cards anyway. Um, the I just feel like tortillas do an even better job of that. Okay. Oh, well, I guess. Let's look at this. All righty. Um, I think we can get rid of that. I thought in my head there was like a third thing I wanted to do today. But it just never occurred to me again. Um, it'll probably occur to me after all of this. Wow, my stream is. Oh wait, I'm not currently live. There we go. Um. Okay, a couple things I'll need to do. Last bit of stuff I'll need to do is I'll need to update the website, the banners, and that'll be after the stream is over though, and update the make sure it has the link to the to Tuesday's stream in it. Mm. A thing I wanted to point out. Let me see if I can find it. So, some news, some good news. Well, it's news. It's positive momentum, is what I will call it. It's sort of the thing I wish didn't have to happen, but I think will like just periodically needs to happen. I think we're headed towards a general strike. I don't. I think it's pretty clear we're headed towards a general strike. Um, we're building up momentum. The No Kings 2 was crazy in terms of turnout across the country, and that is ultimately helping bring a mass of people in. And it's still a relatively small percentage of the overall population, but you know as you start to accumulate entire whole percentages, one whole percent, two whole percent, three, four, five, as whole percentages of the population start to pay attention to a thing, um, that's a lot of willpower and attention and intention um, out there at play. You're starting to talk because like there's roughly 350 million people in the United States. So 1% is 3 million people. 2% is 3.5 million people actually. 2% is 7. 4% is 14 million people. That's a whole lot of people all paying attention to the same things, all having similar intentions towards the same ideas and outcomes, and it's powerful. Um and so And even though it's nowhere near like a majority of people, it is enough people. And so what's happening, something I wanted to share. Um oh, I know. Haha, I can send this to this is good. Um Oh, it did. Okay. Bear with me, y'all. No, of course it wouldn't because yeah. Okay. I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to get to but I think oops. Now we got an accidental screenshot. My goodness. Okay. So I was gonna share a link, but I just encourage you to look up. We can go in here. Uh, I encourage you to look up uh, "Day Without an Immigrant." These are a series of day-long strikes, not contiguous, right? Or else it wouldn't be a day-long strike; it would be a days-long strike. Um, there are a series of days. Coming up, we have December 18th, It looks like January 19th, Feb 16th, March 16th. I mean, actually, looking at these numbers, it looks like it's like, well, it's not every 4 weeks because this is definitely more than 4 weeks between there, but here to there looks like maybe 4 weeks. In fact, the 18th is a Thursday. The 19th, this one is a Monday, right? So this is like Thursday. This is Monday, February 16th. February 16th is also a Monday. Wait, hold on, let me double check. It's December 18th. December 18th is in fact a Thursday. Okay. March 16 has to also be a Monday because that's how February works when it's not a leap year. April 1st, April Fool's Day, which I think is funny, and that's only a couple weeks later. That's a Wednesday. And finally, May 1st, which is May Day, International Workers' Day. There's oftentimes a strike on that day anyway. And May 1st. Yeah, April 1st is a Wednesday. May 1st is a Friday. These are starting on December 18th, we call on all Oregon workers, citizen and immigrant alike, to commit to no work, no school, and no shopping on these days to join visibility actions in their communities. No work, no school, no shopping. This day is International Migrants Day. So I think that's why they're starting on this day. And then May 1st, May Day is International Workers' Day. These strikes are good. It doesn't matter what's going on. These strikes are good. But given what is going on, these strikes are necessary. I'm a big fan of the yearly May Day, International Workers' Day work stoppages that tend to happen as a reminder of the solidarity of labor. Regularly clamping the brakes on the economy is good for us, for workers. It reminds those that benefit the most from a prosperous economy, because not everybody benefits equally from a prosperous economy. It reminds the people who benefit most from a prosperous economy that they don't control it, though. They've figured out a little capitalism hack, little capitalism hack that gives them a lot of power within capitalism, but it doesn't actually give them the ultimate power. They can't force people to work. They just can't. Um, and we need to remind ourselves that they can't force us to work. We need to remind ourselves that we don't have to work. We choose to. And we enter into agreements with the people that control the capital to exchange our labor for some of their capital. You don't, that's not earning. I hear people talk about, like, you know, the taxes are theft because I earned that money or whatever. No, you didn't. You entered into an exploitative agreement exchange with a capitalist is what you did. Um and you're being taken advantage of. You're being exploited, and you just agreed that the amount of money they're willing to give you, it satisfies you for that exchange. But you didn't earn that money. You were given that money. Um that money is not somehow rightfully yours just because you entered an agreement with a person or an organization. Um, what is rightfully yours, what absolutely is rightfully yours, is your labor, is your effort, your energy. That is rightfully yours to do with as you choose. And that's ultimately the philosophy here. I want to talk more about this. Um, Ideas for future streams, right? Um, what is the economy? Do you understand what the economy is? I think most people don't, or at least strike that. I don't think that most people don't understand what the economy is. I think most people don't actively think about what the economy actually is when they talk about it, when when they're talking about things related to it, politics, things like that. Um, a related question, or at least a question that is relevant when we're talking about the economy in the context of the U.S., uh, which is how we'd be talking about. A related question is, what actually is the government? This one I think people would be more confident in answering, but would I think that a lot of people would jump into an answer and then sort of get themselves a little lost. Because again, it's a big amorphous question, right? And there's not actually one correct answer, um, or at least not one simple correct answer. Um, and it might seem strange to maybe be talking about this sort of stuff on a ostensibly a math help stream, but these are the things I care about. And the reason I'm doing this math help stream is to help empower people. Um, and I'm not interested in just one narrow avenue of empowerment. I know a lot about math because math never intimidated me. And because, I assigned male at birth, very typical little white boy, uh and I showed a vague interest in math, and people just piled it on me. Um, and so I got good at math because nobody ever told me that I shouldn't be good at math, whereas lots and lots of students get that messaging. Um, and so this whole stream is a way for me to try to democratize, to make accessible uh math support, which I hope then empowers people. It empowers people with mathematical thinking, with reasoning, with these tools of mathematics, which are incredibly powerful and incredibly useful. But we have set up a system that allows people to deny themselves those tools voluntarily, and then we sort of give them a little clap for it. That seems totally backwards to me. Um, I wrinkle my nose at it every single time I see a student. Not when I see a person or a student say, "I'm not a math person." I expect that, but when I see a teacher sort of go along with it, allow them to sit with that. When a teacher doesn't challenge that self-assessment, that it's just like, what are you doing? Um, so anyway, this stuff is incredibly relevant to these streams. Incredibly relevant to what I'm doing here. Um, and right now, I would argue actually this stuff is more important than the math. It's just the math is what I know. I don't know anything about resisting fascism. Um, I've never done it before. I mean, yeah, I've never actually done it before, right? Um, I mean, other than the bit you try to, tried to do in Trump's first term, but like the fascism play wasn't quite as strong there because I think they were waiting until Trump's second term, which sort of got interrupted. We got like a little lucky respite by electing Biden. Um, anyway, so yeah, this stuff is actually incredibly important to me and to what I'm doing with these streams. And honestly, if there's somebody out there who comes across this section of this stream, which I kind of doubt nobody ever will, but or anybody ever will, if they do and they're like, ugh, I don't want that person to help me with math, that's totally fine. I don't have to help you with math. If you need help with math and you're able to find somebody else who doesn't feel this strongly about this stuff, that's great. If that helps you learn math, if you think it would be distracting to you to know that I oppose Trump and oppose American fascism and MAGAism and Trumpism, and I oppose Hegseth and Kristi Noem and all of this stuff. Um, if knowing that distracts you, then yeah, it means I'm not the right tutor for you. So don't you probably don't reach out to me to work with you one on one. If that renders these streams ineffective for you, I apologize, but I also encourage you to sort of examine for yourself why that is. Why you're interested in learning math, but you're not interested in this stuff. Um, why you're interested in empowering yourself via math, but you're not interested in empowering yourself in terms of actual exercisable power. This is getting to like just raw like political social power, whereas math is like a tool you use that can be empowering. When we're talking about these strikes, um, and all of this, we're talking more about sort of that pure raw social and political economic power. Of course. So, with that in mind, for the moment, let's turn our attention to something less important, but still semi-relevant. So as you interact with these streams, if you interact with me more than once, you'll start to notice that I format my dates weird. And if you see a full timestamp, which is probably a little bit less common in this setting, you'll see that I format my time when I write down the time also weird. I call it a star date format simply because it reminds me of like Star Trek, like at the little interstitials or at the beginning of an episode. Oftentimes you'll have, Kirk or Picard, captain's log, star date, such and such dot, such and such, right? Um, Part of me trying to make sense of how that star date, how the given star date actually works, what those numbers mean, how it's encoding information, but then also my lifelong struggle to come up with a way to write the date and the time that makes sense to me. Like we have notation for it. I can just use that, and I do just use that when I'm communicating with other people oftentimes. But when I'm just writing stuff for me, I don't like it. I don't like the way we format our dates. I don't like the way we format our time. There's a lot of superfluous symbols. There's a lot of there's sort of inconsistency in like the ordering of values that you're encoding. Um, so we sort of I when I'm writing the date and or the time, we need to communicate several pieces of information, right? Um, so what am I trying to do? So my goals are avoid superfluous characters, symbols. So, um, and utilize numeric representations. Avoid ambiguous states. Okay, so superfluous characters and symbols. When you write the date and the time, like if you're to do a full time date stamp, right? Oftentimes you would use a comma in between the uh in between the date, the day of the month, and the year, right? So if you were to write uh today's date, December 14th, 2025, and right now it is 12:32 p.m., right? So if we look at all of this, that comma unnecessary. It exists solely to separate the 14 from the 2025. The 20 in 2025, absolutely superfluous. We know what century we're in. And if there is, and in the case of ambiguity, like if I was talking about 1925 or I was talking in the future 2125 or something like that, that's when I would use the full 4-digit date. Um, but if I don't use the 4-digit date, if I just use a 2-digit year, that implies that it's this century. Okay, so the comma, the 20, the month spelled out. Of course, you can abbreviate to DEC, but regardless, you're using non-numeric characters. You're using alphabetic characters. So the entire month is superfluous. There's an additional space. There's a space here, a space there. There's a space there. Lots of extra spaces. There's a colon. There's a PM. Look at this. Tons of extra stuff. It might seem like a small thing, and it is a small thing, but that's all information that's there that our brains then process out. So, like, why is it there at all? Okay, so there's superfluous symbols. Um, every part of a date and timestamp can be represented non-ambiguously with a number. Um, oh. um, so yeah, there's no reason to use anything other than numeric symbols when you're writing the date or the so actually utilize only numeric representations and avoid ambiguous states. Um, so an ambiguous state is like if you write 11:03, is that PM or AM? Hard to tell. That's why we have AM or PM, is to disambiguate those recurring times when we use. So one of the things we do here is we switch to a 24-hour clock, or what's sometimes in the US referred to as military time. Um, it's just a 24-hour clock. It exists outside of the military, and in fact, nurses. So you could, to appreciate what I'm doing here, one of the things you can do is just go and look at high pressure environments and see how they deal with things like this, and you'll see that, oh, they probably write the date differently than we typically do as well. But like lots of places use a 24-hour clock, and in fact, lots of places around the world, that's just like just in everyday life. They just use a 24-hour clock. They don't use a repeating 12-hour clock. And so what that means is you get a 1 o'clock, which is 1 a.m., but then 1 p.m. is not 1 p.m. It's 1300. It's the 13th hour of the day. And so on a 24-hour clock, um, each hour, each numbered hour is actually only used once in that day cycle. And then so like 11 p.m. would be 2300. I'm going to say 2300 hours or something like that. I'm going to go, 2330, 2345, 2350, 2355, 56, 57, 58, 15, and you get to 2359. And then as soon as it ticks over, the next minute goes to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, which is midnight, the beginning of the next day. And then 0:01 is the first minute of the next day. Then it'll go up 1, it'll go 2, 3, all the way to 55, 56, 57, 58, 59. And then it'll hit 0:59, and then the next minute will be 100 hours, or 1 o'clock. And that's 1 in the morning, and it's not ambiguous. If you say 100, or even just 1, people know that's 1 in the morning. If you want to specify 1 in the afternoon, you would have to say 13, or 1300. Um, yeah. So how does the Stardate format work here? So so it works in a series of uh, two did digit um oh, I just lost the phrase. That's so funny. Um two digit two digits for each temporal unit, right? So right now it is Sunday, December 14th, 2025 at 12:38 p.m. So right now it is December 14, 2025 at 12:38 p.m. Okay. So notice how long that is to write out. Even if I reduced it to DEC, and granted, we could write the date different ways. We could do 12/14/25, get rid of that extra 20, and then say 12:38 p.m. And that's considerably shorter. But look, slashes. Now we have an extra superfluous um symbol here, right? We also have slashes that might go in there. We don't need those slashes if we know what the numbers represent. But then notice the order of these. If we got rid of the slashes, we'd have to remember that we go month, then day, a smaller unit, then year, the biggest unit, then hours, a smaller unit, and minutes, an even smaller unit. And granted, some places in the world would write this like this. They might even omit the PM because they're already working on a 24-hour clock, right? But now we have this weird sort of like, you see something like this. What if it's not the 14th day? What if it's the 10th day? Now when you see this, oh shoot. Oh, wait, right, 101. Sorry about that. What if it's the 10th day? Now when you see this, you have to ask yourself, wait, is this an American date or is this like an international date where they put the year first, or is this October 12th or December 10th? Right? Because we have all these mix ups. So we need a standardization that makes sense. And so we want two digits. So here, I'm going to actually, give me 1 sec. I'm going to move this a little bit. Oops. Move this down. So there's our right now. We also want a logical progression of units, or a logical layout order. Let's call it order. Order of temporal units. So every temporal unit can be summarized and encoded in two digits. You need two digits for the day of the month. You need two digits for the month. You need two digits for the year. You need two digits for the hour. You need two digits for the minutes. Two digits for the seconds. So two digits for each temporal unit. You need a logical order. So here's our order. We are going to do year. Then immediately next to it, I'm going to leave some space here, but so we can read the words, because words need spaces. Year, month, day, dot, hour, minute. That's the format. That's the star date format. So to encode our date right now, I'm going to do the time of when I did this 12:38 instead of the actual current time of 12:42. So it would be 25. We don't have to put the 20 ahead of time because because it's implied that we're in this century, then the month, 12, then the day, 14, then dot. The dot separates the whole units of days from the partial units of days. The day number is a full unit of days. The month number is an even bigger unit, but it's composed of multiple days, and the year even more so. And then we do 12:38. And that's the star date format. I'm not the first person to use this, think of this, write the date this way. I haven't looked up to where some of this originated. I made it up for myself. I didn't like see somebody else explain this and say that's what I want to do. I came up with this, but I understand I'm not the first person to come up with it. And the only reason it was easy for me to come up with is because it's been out there in the ether, in things like Star Trek and then more realistic things. And there might be some improvements to this that people have made, but any changes I make to this thus far have actually diminished it. This is the best version of it I have so far. Now, what if we were talking about 1925, or what if we were talking about 2125? Because this is just kind of convenient. I could write 2125 12:14.12:38. And now we see that this is more digits than normal. It's 8 digits instead of 6. And so we know those first 2 digits are the century digit, or the century digits. But almost never are we going to need to include those. And in fact, if you do need to specify a date far in the future or far in the past to where the century digits would be different, it might be worthwhile to actually spell out the date for your purposes, but maybe not. But what's nice about this is it is 8. It's 8 digits. It's 4 pair. Oh wait, no. That sounded wrong even as I was saying that. There should be more. It's 5 pairs of digits, or 10 digits altogether. Notice there is a symbol in here, a dot, which I do regard as a numeric symbol. Not a colon. One, because I didn't want to confuse it with what the colon had been used with previously, and we haven't traditionally used dots in our date formatting, so the dot doesn't bring any assumptions with it. Other than the fact that when you see a string of numbers with a dot, you understand that everything beyond the dot is a partial amount of the things before the dot. And that's exactly what's happening here. These hours, and this, you can't use this strict, like this isn't the number 20 or 251,214.1238. It's not that number because these pair of digits are base 60. These pair of digits are base 24. This pair of digits depends on the month. This pair of digits is base 12. This pair of digits is base 100. And so they're all sort of different bases. So when you string them all together, it doesn't actually become a numeric value, or at least not one that we can do much with, I don't think. But even in a computer system, it's still fully encoded. If I put this in as a string somewhere for the date, and somebody needed to parse it and pull apart and programmatically figure out what date I had input from my string, and I've done this multiple times in programs, it's so easy to pull apart. You literally go 2 digits at a time. you break off the first two digits, the first two characters, and boom, you have your year. And now it's truncated, and now you break off the first two characters again, and boom, it's the month, right? So it's super easy to parse programmatically. And then the dot is there to visually break up this string of numbers, because if you get rid of the dot, right? If you get rid of the dot, this becomes a lot harder to read. It becomes hard to figure when you just look at it. You go, oh wait, what's my day? Which of these digits is the day? It's not impossible, and when you get pretty practiced at it, even without the dot, I can parse it pretty well. But the dot is nice because it's a very small character that visually breaks up the numbers, separates the whole day numbers from the partial day numbers. And then your eye can jump immediately to the dot, and then immediately to the left of the dot is the day, usually one of the most important numbers in this string. You usually just know off the top of your head what month it is and what year it is, but sometimes you have to check what date it is. And then the hour tends to be pretty important too. You don't often need to know exactly what time it is. You just need to know like what hour you're currently in or headed towards. And so with this format, your eye can go immediately to the dot, and then left is day, right is hour. And then for additional clarification, you just finish reading the hour and you figure out where in that hour you're at. Oh, 12:48. Oh, but actually, or 12:38. But so actually we're closer to 13. Right. So it's just very useful. What's also really nice is this dot is a natural segmentation point. With this format, it's perfectly valid to just write 25/12/14 for the current date, and to just write .1238 for the time. And if I know for sure that only a time is ever going to go in a particular place, then I'll oftentimes just leave off the dot. But the dot is there to specify. It's kind of like when you see, if you just saw the number 1,238, you would not assume that that was a time. You could look at it and go, oh, that could be a time, but you wouldn't assume it was. But if you see 12:38, you know that that's a time. That's one of the few times in regular everyday life that we put a colon between two numbers, is when you're dealing with time. And that's really nice. It means at a glance you can tell whether something is supposed to be a timestamp. So to keep some element of that, I adopted this dot time notation. And so if I just need to put in a time someplace, I do dot and then the 4-digit time. The time is always 4 digits. So if it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that would be dot 14:00, which is oftentimes why with 24-hour clocks or military time, they refer to things as 1,400 hours, 2,200 hours, that sort of thing, because, right, there's two zeros that follow it. And in 24-hour clocks, they oftentimes omit the colon. Again, because it's a superfluous character, I included this dot in the notation as sort of a streamlined replacement for that colon. So you can look at this and say, oh, dot 4 digits, that's got to be a timestamp. Notice you don't need an AM or PM because it uses a 24-hour clock. Yeah, so that's why my dates tend to look weird. Why when you go to the top of the notes, that's what this number up here is, like Sunday 25/12/14. That's Sunday, December 14th, 2025. And then so it just, I guess I didn't mention this, the logical order of temporal units. So we go from largest unit to second largest, years to months to day to hours to seconds. And then you could, if you needed to specify beyond seconds, you just keep adding them in. My thinking is 2 digits at a time, but it ultimately doesn't really matter. This might be a good place for a colon to potentially 1400, and then if you need some milliseconds in there, right? So you do like um, you know, 208 or something like that. So that's 1400 hours in 208 milliseconds, right? So we're just barely past the hour mark, not even halfway to the next minute. Um, so yeah, this would be seconds, tenths of seconds, hundredths of seconds. But you often don't need to do stuff like that because the scale at which we interact with time, seconds are about as small as we can really comprehend. If you're using some sort of system that works faster than that and you need to notate stuff, oftentimes, you may need to use uh more time digits than just the four. But for scheduling purposes and time tracking purposes and stuff like that, we often don't need to go smaller than a minute. Um and I know I often don't in my everyday life. And I use this, well, I'm in the process of switching all of my stuff over to this Stardate format. Um, some of my systems I created before I had settled on this date format. And in fact, when I was showing off my spreadsheet student management system, I notated a place where in one place I'm using this format, but it grabs that date and it doesn't correctly parse it when it puts the date in a new place. And it's formatting the date differently in the new place. And so my translation between the two, for whatever reason, isn't working. So I have a few places in the systems I use where I'm still using sort of what I think of as legacy date formats. Um, but for the most part, this is pretty exclusively what I use. Even to the point where I do dates and times a bit like this when I'm communicating with like some of the closest people in my life, the people I communicate with the most. But for the most part, it's just for me. I do tend to try to. I still use 13 hour, 24-hour clocks. Um, Even when I'm communicating with other people, for the most part, just because it just makes more sense to my head. Huh. Okay. Um, that takes us pretty well to the end of the stream. And yeah, never got any questions in. That's okay. We'll keep doing it. I'll be back here Tuesday at 9 p.m. You remember, you can submit your questions anytime though at thecalculustutor.com or by emailing me at ryan@thecalculustutor.com. Um, Submit your questions anytime. You don't have to tune into the live stream uh, to get my response to your questions. You can just watch the VOD later. And I will, after you submit your question and after I answer it, I'll email you back with links to those things so you can very easily get to them. Um, no promises that will be something that I keep doing as we get more and more questions and stuff. But right now, people who submit questions will benefit from the fact that it's a little bit slow or a lot bit slow. Um, Excellent. Okay, I need to get the website updated now. So let's do the banner. I think what do I want to put next? Math Help Stream. Will be Tuesday. (9 p.m. PST). So, like on the website, I put the time in. I write 9 p.m. PST, um, because like. So that's the thing. I don't use the Stardate format in places where I don't know that people have been introduced to it. Because the goal is still good communication, right? But I like having this format for myself. Okay, Tuesday stream. There we go. Oh wait, no. There we go. All right. What? Wait, what? Hold on. Oh my gosh. I have the date wrong on the Tuesday stream. I put 14th, which is today's date, instead of the 16th. Ha, that's funny. Wow. But it already propagated to the web. That's fun. Okay, cool. Well, we made it to the end, y'all. Please submit questions, and I will answer them in the next stream. But remember, you don't have to submit them when I'm live. Submit them anytime, and you don't even have to watch the stream live. You'll still be able to benefit from it. You'll still know when I answer your question and get links right to it. So yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of your Sunday, a great weekend. I hope you have a great last week before winter break and get your 2.5, 3 weeks off. It's gonna be nice. I'll be available during winter stream. Winter break. I'll be doing some streams here and there. So yeah, please reach out. Let me know if you have math homework you want help with over the break. Until Tuesday, have a great weekend and a good few days.